The 31st of January 2023 marked two important events: the launch of Haas's new car for the upcoming season, and the last day before we could all drink again. As funny as watching the latter might be, I want to focus more in on that first point. We are an F1 channel after all. The road the Haas F1 team has journeyed down since their inaugural season in 2016 looks like one you might find in the southwest of England, and by that I mean one full of potholes that turns your spine into pieces of alphabetic spaghetti. Point is, they've not had it easy. Since those debut points in Australia with Romain Grosjean, the team have had to endure dodgy sponsorship deals, the Big Bang, this guy, the list goes on and on. By the time 2021 rolled around, the team seemed to be on the verge of leaving the sport altogether. They'd just fallen to backmarker status and employed a chief wall rider alongside a guy who liked going round in circles in the car a little too much. Couple this with Vladimir Putin's Ukrainian vacation and thus the loss of their key title sponsor, the situation looked as dire as ever. But then 2022 happened, and everything changed. Firstly, Kevin Magnussen was brought back into the fold, the collective reaction to which went something like, "Oh cool. So anyway." The Dane had previously been sacked following the 2020 season, though was about to come back with a bang in Bahrain. I've just realised I probably should add some context to that. P7 in qualifying, P5 in the race, after minimal testing, in a car that last year was about as competitive as me on Tinder. Suddenly everyone had woken up. Were Haas back in the midfield fight? Well, kinda. With a smaller budget than the likes of McLaren and Alpine, the US outfit quickly fell backwards in the development race, which wasn't helped by Mick Schumacher. Period. Come the end of the season, the team lied 8th in the standings on 37 points, and hey, that's 37 more than they managed last year, but it did feel somewhat underwhelming given some of the performances we'd seen, out of one side of the garage at least. It was showings like Bahrain or K-Mag's sensational pole position in Brazil that got the sponsors talking about the American team again, with Haas finally announcing MoneyGram as their new title partner at the 2022 US Grand Prix. Now, given their history with title sponsors, and their history of making catastrophically bad decisions, many people obviously had their doubts, but look on the bright side, you can't do much worse than last time. Then again, we thought the same thing after Rich Energy. Jokes aside though, it seems, for now at least, like MoneyGram are somewhat more stable than either of their predecessors. But let's just step back and look at the wider picture for a second. Haas have described 2023 as the start of a new era for the team, and that's a promising line coming from an outfit who looks set to drop off the grid at some point a few years ago. 2022 appears to have reignited the fire in Gene Haas's wallet, and if we can keep one more team on the grid, that's good news for everybody. The signing of MoneyGram isn't the only change going into 2023, as we've got to take a minute to talk about Nico Hülkenberg. The German will replace Mick Schumacher for the upcoming campaign, and if you remember at the time this was announced, I didn't really understand why, but the more I reflect on it, the more confused I get. Let me just put it out there, I don't think Hulk is a bad driver, not by any means. Just look at what he managed to do in his stand-in performances for Racing Points in 2020. We won't factor in the Aston Martin appearances because, well, it was Aston Martin. The guy's got talent and a wealth of experience. You know who else has those two things? Kevin bloody Magnussen. Let me put it to you this way. Imagine the following scenario. You're a farmer who owns a supercar, and you've got a choice over your next big purchase. I promise there is method to my madness here, stick with me. You can either buy a new tractor, which will help with farming stuff, I imagine, or you could buy a second supercar, which is the same in every single way, but has a German flag on it. Now I realise my analogy referring to Mick Schumacher as a tractor probably doesn't help his case much, but my point is, why have two experienced drivers not far from the end of their careers when you could have one with a young hotshot in the second car instead? Realistically, Hülkenberg and Magnussen are not going to be the future of the Haas Formula 1 team. Now, Mick Schumacher likely wasn't either, but for me, if the team weren't going to continue with the German, they could have at least replaced him with another young talent who can keep K-Mag on his toes. And yes, Mick did like to have a little flirt with the barriers every now and then, but to his credit, he was far better in the second half of 2022. If anything, he looked like the quicker of the Haas cars in some events. Will that take put me in some hot water? Yeah, it probably will. And I'll say now, I think the Hülkenberg-Magnussen pairing will still perform well in 2023. But as that lineup gets older and the drivers move further and further away from their prime, those results will just start to drop off. It's a case of diminishing returns. So with my rant over, let's actually answer the question this video aimed to seek out. What's next for Haas in 2023? And if I'm honest, I can see them going upwards. to begin with at least. The outfit finally have the finances they maybe have lacked over the last few seasons, and with the budget cap generally leveling the playing field, if the team can start as strongly as they did in 2022, there's a very real chance they can stay in that development race much further into the season. Now, I've said my piece on the drivers, but provided we don't get a year-long repeat of Hungary 2017, they should at least do a decent job this season, though for how long that pairing lasts in this sport is anyone's guess. That, though, was my take on the future of the Haas Formula 1 team, meaning now it's over to the part of the video that no one really listens to anyway. So if you haven't clicked off yet, please do argue with me down in the comments below. Whilst you're down there, don't forget to drop this video a like and get subscribed for more filler content like this every Sunday till the 2023 season starts and I finally have something meaningful to talk about. A final thank you goes out to my patrons and a special shout out here to Haas, who signed up in the last week. If you want to support me further, then you can check out the link to that and all of my other socials down in the description of this video. But for now, that's all from me, so I'll see you next Sunday with another video, but until then, have a good one.